G'day, my name's Gordon Dedman and welcome to another episode of Bushcraft Survival. Today we're going to be having a look at making fire with the Bowdrill using Lantana. We're going to have a look at how to find the wood, construct the set and produce fire. Here's a look at the Lantana, which is a noxious weed in Australia. This is found everywhere in Australia, unfortunately. However, it's going to serve us perfectly to make our Bowdrill fire set. I've been walking around the area looking for a dry, dead clump of Lantana, and that's exactly what we have behind me. From this clump, we're going to construct our drill and our base plate or half board. From some green Lantana nearby, I'm going to construct our bow and our handhold. Well, here we are back at camp with our collection of wood from our dead stand of Lantana. The bow is a bit of green Lantana, and it doesn't have to be curved, it can be straight. It still works quite well straight. That's got a very slight bend in it. I've got a bit of paracord to use with the bow. I've got a handhold. Now I end up swapping my piece of Lantana for I found a nice bit of acacia, which is actually quite hard. We want our handhold to be hard and smooth. And crucially, our wood for our spindle or drill and our half board is that nice dead Lantana. So we're going to go ahead, I'm going to try and get our base plate from this part, which is nice and dead, so that should work quite well. So I'm constructing the base plate. I want it nice and flat on one side. Got a little bit of a branch here, but that's actually helps to stabilise it, so that's a good thing. And what I'm doing is flattening it on top, because that's where my drill is going to sit. And I want it slightly flattened on the bottom. I basically want to sit that down, find out where that's going to fit flat on the ground, because we don't want that to roll at all. It's got to be solid. We don't want that to roll at all. So we need a very stable platform to drill into. That looks nice. So that's going to be our half board or our base plate. Our spindle, we want to sit just inside that. It's a little bit on the long side, but we'll shorten that. I want that to be nice and straight. There's a slight curve in it, so I'm going to take some of that curve off in the end. Remember, when using a knife, make sure you're always cutting away from yourself. I'm down on my knees, my blade is going away from me. Always cut away from the body. What I'm after, I want it pointy at one end for less friction, blunt at the other for greater friction. So that's our drill and our half board. So what I'm going to go and do now, I'm going to make a depression in this base plate, just so I can seat our drill into that. I put that on the ground so that I'm not cutting a depression, holding it into my hand so that I don't slip and cut myself. The safest way is to place that on the ground and make the depression on the ground. Always thinking that if you were to slip with the knife, where would that blade go? That's my drill bit. That's going to marry up nicely in there. I can just encourage that. But I have a depression that our drill is going to fit into. And when I add a bit of speed and friction to that, that's going to drill in nicely. I'll just give it a little bit of a sharpen just to help get it started. So there's our half board or base plate and our drill constructed from dead Lantana. Looking at our bow, it's a bit of green Lantana. When that dries it becomes very, very light, but it actually becomes brittle as well. So, two things. What I need to do firstly, my saw, I'm going to notch the top here with my saw. Obviously if you didn't have a saw, you just use your knife. And that's just going to be where the string sits. And I cut another one on the back, right up near where I hold it with my hand. Once again, cutting in towards the centre. Got a notch at one end, a notch at the other end. I take my cordage, which in this case is 550 paracord, which is an essential part of any survival kit. If you didn't have this, you could use a shoelace. Failing that, you could use the hem of your shirt. All I'm going to do that is double that over to form a bite, and I'm going to tie just a thumb knot. So I'll thumb knot over the top, like that. I stick that over the top of my bow. And I'm going to take that up the bow and measure that off, give myself a little bit of a tail. And what I'm going to do is wrap that. All I'm doing is wrapping that around the end and tying a series of half hitches, trying to keep that centered underneath. Now, new cordage stretches, so when you've got a new piece you're going to have to readjust and tighten it several times because it will slip. And all I do is tie a series of half hitches around that end. I could have made that tail a little bit longer, give me some more to play with, but that's okay. I'll get away with that. So there's my bow. It's got a little bit of flex. Generally speaking, I don't want too much flex because then that'll cause that to slip as well. My handhold, I should say, I want that flat on one side. So I get my knife, and what I'm going to do is just flatten. I find out where that wants to sit in my hand, and the flattest part of that is that part there. And in the middle, about there, I'm going to create my depression, and that's what's going to, that's where the drill is going to fit into to make our socket. So once again, I place that on the ground. Now, a bit of bone, anything smooth, a bit of dead hardwood will work. Being very careful, thinking where that knife's going to go. When you use a bit of green wood for this, it obviously you're going to get not much friction. Once that dies and becomes dead, you will start getting more friction. And that's going to fit in there. The most crucial part of when you're doing anything with the Bowdrill is that setup is always the most difficult, really, because everything's fresh and all the variables are new, and it takes a while to sort of get it seated and set. What I'm going to do is just test by putting my drill inside my bow. I generally thread it so that the drill ends up on the outside of the bow. Must be on the outside, like that, and that's nice and tight. I don't want it too loose, bearing in mind this is new cordage, it's fresh, so it's going to stretch. So that's a nice fit. And what I'm going to do is seat that. Now I'm not going for cold yet, I'm just going to seat the drill and get it ready before we make our fire. So I stick our drill in once again. Adopting correct posture. Wrist into shin. And as you can see, our set we now have married up to our base part. Our drill fits our base plate. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut a notch. I'm also going to sharpen this. Always want to keep that as close to sharp as you can. And I'm racing against the light here. I'm actually in a dark area in thick sort of secondary rainforest, and the sun's going down fast. I'm also going to make that a little bit deeper. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to get my saw, and I'm now going to cut a notch in that. What I'm doing, as we saw it in episode 3, we beveled the underside, and that allows oxygen to get in underneath. So now we have a notch, we have a drill, we have our handhold, and we have our bow, and we're ready to make fire. but it's taken me about 10 minutes to collect some kindling and some tinder. As always, we have our platform of parallel sticks on the ground to prevent moisture from the ground getting into our fire, so it's insulation. We have our collection of kindling ranging from matchstick size right up to thumb thickness and beyond, and we also have our tinder. What I've found around here, there's lots of cabbage tree palms, and I've got the cabbage tree palm fibre, which you've seen in other episodes, as well as lots of paper bark, which we've also seen in other episodes. So that's going to be our tinder. So with that all prepared, we're ready now to make fire with our Lantana Bowdrill set. Once again, making sure the drill is on the outside of the cordage. I don't need to lubricate this with saliva or green grass because the wood itself is green. Ensuring we've got good technique. Once again, the corner of our wrist must be embedded into our shin to stop lateral movement. And we want to keep parallel strokes with the bow to the ground. Any scooping and the string will ride up the drill. We don't want that. We want to keep that as flat as possible. We want to keep long strokes so that we use the whole length of the bow and we don't tire ourselves out. Now we have an ember. Because that string, Cordy's knew that was already starting to slip. There are a few tricks you can use to prevent that. I was pulling away from the drill, but we'll look into that in another episode. But as you can see, we have a glowing ember. I'm going to place that carefully. I'm going to let that grow a bit. Remember, you don't want to rush at this point. A lot of people rush at this point to get it in their tinder. You've got a few minutes. I'd rather have that grow and get nice and solid before we transfer it to our tinder bundle. Now we have fire. I hold that upside down so that the flames go up. Everything's actually a little bit damp, but it still can be done if your preparation is correct. I've got some casuarina leaves here, which will burn nicely. Once the flames come through the top, it's only then that we add our different grades of kindling. I split the pile in half and a crisscross over the top. The rest of the wood, there's plenty other wood to hand, so I'm going to go and put the rest of this kindling around the fire in teepee fashion. It allows it to collapse onto the fire as it burns. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode on how to light a fire with the Bowdrill using Lantana as the wood. My name's Gordon Dedman, and I look forward to seeing you again on another episode of Bushcraft Survival.